What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Thank you guys for tuning in live to Real Talk episode Sports Ed, short for Sports Edition. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but right now it's got a lot going on in the world of sports, especially for our local teams in the state of Louisiana. And just wanted to talk about a few things for a few minutes, and I'll try to start back getting into them, man. We've been only doing the Real Talk Kingdom discussions lately, but I've always when we originally started, me and Coach Gordon, we were always doing Real Talk with Martin and Gordon, and we would always do local, national sports. We would do some type of community session, and then we would always end with some type of inspirational message before we concluded our show. And then we kind of went into some just sports shows, and then we evolved into the Kingdom discussions underneath the Real Talk platform. And so it's just been a while since I've been able to do a sports show, and that's because just just the time, for the sake of and the lack of time, man, just getting busier and busier. But I just wanted to kind of talk to y'all for a few minutes, see what you guys thought about some things that's going on, man. You know what I'm saying? Please share too, man. Y'all be interactive. Well, we're not gonna do it too long. Hopefully about 30 minutes or so, but we'll get off after that. But you guys tune in and share your feedback, comments, questions. I'll try to answer what I can, and what I can, I'll try to look it up for you guys. But just got a good little show, man. It's not gonna be long. It's just myself today. And we're gonna talk about. I see I got a guy, Mr. Cameron Perkins. Thank you for tuning in. And he's got a question, and I'll try to answer what I think about that. It says, "What do you think about Tom Brady coming out of retirement?" Please answer that question after the DeShaun Watson segment, and I sure will get to that. But of course, I wanted to talk about DeShaun Watson, and of course, we could talk about LSU Tigers men's basketball team. Been under investigation for probably 3 years or so with Will Wade, and Will Wade had some recorded phone calls between himself and some recruits or agents of recruits or or representatives of recruits, and using language that would be indicative of someone who's paying players to come to school at LSU. Um, Now, being honest with you, as a sports fan, myself, and I'm pretty certain most of you guys are very much aware that this goes on probably at majority of the bigger institutions, universities, but it's just that when you get caught, man, when you get caught, and then you have consequences to pay for that. But in these last 4 to 5, I think 5 years, Will Wade has been at LSU. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. LSU has had he's over. I think he got over 100 and some wins, probably 50 something losses. Like, he was building a nice program, man. Looked like a good coach and great at recruiting, great talent evaluator, man. LSU has every class has had top five. He's had top 5-star talent and 4-star talent coming from all around the country to come there. So, man, I think it's awesome what he was doing. Getting caught doing what he was doing, I'm not condoning that at all. You have a code of ethics and morals to abide by, and I know a lot of that is in the contractual agreements when you sign with a team and with a university, and he violated that. But he's not the only one. Ain't the first. Ain't gonna be the last. It's just so happened, like I read one of his tweets on yesterday when he was talking about he thinks that athletic director Scott Woodward and I think the president at LSU, he thinks that they made it one of the biggest mistakes of their careers, because he felt that in his heart, what he and his staff had been able to do was to be able to play alongside the halves. He actually, I'm paraphrasing, but he alluded to halves and have-nots in the NCAA basketball college world, and he was trying to, I guess, even the playing field, if you say so. And he was trying to say that what he was pushing for, even though it may have been wrong, and I'm paraphrasing it again, it ended up being something that has come to pass, and is still going to be working toward that as we go forward with these NIL deals and this player compensation. But it's not coming from the university per se; it's coming from outside businesses that are supporting the universities and their students. So not the school, but the business communities around the schools. And so that's the only distinction. But I understand what he was getting at. I understand the gist of what he was getting at. It just was wrong in doing it, man. And he got caught doing what he was doing. But I hope him well, man, because I did enjoy watching LSU. They jumped out to a 12-0 record at the beginning of this year. And then they started falling a little bit because they went 10-11 over their last few games. And I think they ended the season at 22-11. And of course, they were waiting today. This is Selection Sunday for a berth in the NCAA tournament. They lost in the SEC tournament on the first round against Arkansas. And I think Arkansas beat them 3 times this year. Some close games. That game wasn't as close, but the other games were pretty close games. LSU does have a strong team. They lost their starting point guard, who was their steady hand, and lost him for a good portion of the season. And when they did that, it seemed like they struggled to find the rhythm on offense. But anyway, we could talk about that another day. But I hate what happened. Hate the black cloud that was hanging over the university, and I'm imagining that the powers that be was tired of having that cloud hang over them, and especially once they have been, they had just recently received some violations, and they categorize these violations in levels, level 1, 2, 3, and all of that. And I think he had over 8 level 1 violations, and I don't want to dive all off into all that. I'm not abreast on all of that, and I don't feel like finding and reading it all for you, but they're serious violations, and they can't keep overlooking it. They knew it was hanging over their program, and it feels like there's more to come, not only for the basketball side, but for the football side. LSU got to get past this era, this good old boy era that they had in place, this fraternity type environment that they had set, where they were allowing so many things to go unreported and undealt with, unresolved. It's all kind of lawsuits depending on them on the football side, the coaches to women workers and women assistants and staff and faculty, and then the basketball side with the pay for play type of incentives. It's a lot going on with them, man. And Brian Kelly and Kim Mulkey with the women's basketball, they come here to try to clean it up. But I think that they're going to have to take a couple of steps back before they move forward. That's just what I wanted to say on that. But moving on to DeShaun Watson, man, I have been talking to people about, what we were going to be able to do. Will we be able to make any serious noise when it came to attracting one of these top tier quarterbacks, knowing that we have lost our steadying force of Sean Payton. Sean Payton is regarded as an offensive guru, a genius, and has been that since he taken over the New Orleans Saints. And with Drew Brees, but in the year without Drew Brees, he realized it was very tough, and especially even tougher when you're dealing with still COVID, navigating through COVID, having games when you had 8 to 10 coaches that was not present, 8 to 10 starters that are not able to play at a time, traveled on the road for the first 6 weeks, couldn't even play a home game I think it took 6 weeks before we were able to get a home game in the Dome because we were displaced due to the Hurricane Ida. Then you have COVID. Then you had all these things. You had 4 quarterbacks that got a chance to start for New Orleans on this year after James Winston went down in week 7. Week 8, I believe, New Orleans was 5-2 at the time. We went on to finish the season out at 9-8 and only overtime, I think an overtime field goal loss to from the 49ers beat the Rams, and if the Rams had won that game, we would have still made it to the playoff for the 5th year in a row. But because of that, we missed the playoff for the first time in 5 years. And we found out a little bit shortly after the season that our head coach had decided to resign at the current time from coaching. Like I said, and like we've all come to believe, that we don't think that we've seen the last of Sean Payton on the sidelines, but I think he needed a break. And last year was very tough, and it was disappointing to see our coach, that someone we've been seeing for over 16 years, walk up and down that sideline in New Orleans. It's kind of tough to know that we are one of those franchises that is having to go out and find a new coach. And we did that, but we kept some familiarity. We had a lot of interviews over, I think, about 7 or 8 candidates. And it came down to Eric Bieniemy, which is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, New Orleans native from early on in childhood. I think he left New Orleans at about the age of 12. But he is from New Orleans, born in New Orleans, and he had a 9-hour, I think an 8-hour to 9-hour interview with New Orleans. So I believe it was close, but they ended up, which was not a surprise to any of the locals here in Louisiana, that they went with someone that they were very familiar with, Dennis Allen, who has been having the top 6 to 7 defensive unit for the last 3 to 4 years, has been a part of the New Orleans staff with Sean Payton for probably 12 of the 16 seasons that Sean Payton was in New Orleans. And we just went with something that was comfortable so it would not shake up the total makeup of our coaching staff, and we were able to keep everything mostly intact with the exception of Sean Payton. So then you say, if you go with a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded coach, would you be able to attract some of these quarterbacks that have been linked to the Saints, such as Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson? But this was when they knew we had Sean Payton at the helm. Once Sean Payton resigned or retired or whatever, we debated whether or not that would be something that we'd be able to do. And one of my feelings at the time was I was kind of leaning toward Eric Bieniemy, because I figured that him being an offensive-minded guru, young, up-and-coming, well, he's been around the league for quite a while, but Kansas City offense is ranked in the top 10 every season he's been there. And I was kind of looking forward to having him bring something totally new, and maybe it would invigorate not only the fan base, get us excited about it, but also be able to attract some of these young free agent quarterbacks or quarterbacks that were attempting to be traded. When we lost Sean Payton, we kind of had to change approaches. But even though Sean Payton originally had been against the DeShaun Watson situation, because it's got a lot that goes along with that, the Saints, pretty much after he left, had kept their eyes on the situation, and they have been trying to follow that situation until he will be cleared legally from criminal activity. And on, I think yesterday or the day before, I think he was cleared of criminal charges. Of course, there are civil charges that he still has to answer to, but that usually involves money. That's just keeping it real. It usually involves money of some sort, either some types of out of court agreements or settlements or whatever you want to call them. But that's the civil side of it, and but the criminal element is over with. So now he's able to. You saw everybody's noticed that his trade market value has ramped up again, and even though he has a little bit of that baggage hanging over his head, Houston is still going to want a king's ransom for him. Most people know that they're probably going to want something similar to Russell Wilson, but maybe even a little bit more. You know, some two to three first-round picks, a couple of mid-round picks, probably a starter caliber player, and probably a team that has a decent quarterback already on its roster to help them get through that transition period. So it's going to be a hefty price tag to pay for him. But DeShaun Watson is 25 or 26 years old, and he's an all-pro already, been playing for 4 years, in the league for 5 years, but last year did not play at all. And this is an NFL-driven league, and if you have an all-pro quarterback, that's what you're going to have to get you over the top. The days of the Trent Dilfers, and the Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson was a bit more, a bit better thought of than Trent Dilfer, but those days of the managing quarterbacks probably over with. You know, right now your quarterback's got to not only manage games, they're gonna have to win you some games, and that's what the Saints want. They realize how difficult it was last year, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what Jameis would have eventually become. I know at the time he was steady, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions or something like that. So he was steady, but he hadn't shown anything, that would tend you to want to give him a huge deal. And then when he got injured, he hadn't had a chance to prove that yet, but you know he has a lot of potential. Big arm, very likable, great in the locker room. Looked like he was willing to make some adjustments to his game to kind of cut down on a lot of turnovers that plagued him. And I was looking forward to seeing him get to the end of the season and seeing what his numbers would have looked like. But we weren't able to see that. But there's potential. So I think if all else fails, New Orleans goes back with Jameis Winston, runs it back with Jameis Winston, and add key elements on the offensive side for him. You know, one main one is bringing Michael Thomas back, having Michael Thomas be healthy and being his number one receiver, because he didn't have that on last year. Having the number one receiver back, I mean, Alvin Kamara, he's got this looming black cloud hanging over the franchise as well, with the incident that he had in Las Vegas when they jumped on the gentleman and fractured his eye socket and all kind of stuff. It was pretty rough, pretty gruesome, and it was during the Pro Bowl weekend, and I'm certain that there are going to be punishments coming down the pipeline for that. You know, I'm just assuming that we're probably going to be without Alvin Kamara for at least 6 games from the NFL side of it. Don't know, it may be a season, I'm not sure, but I just can't see him being unscathed in that situation. I see Damian Gaston says, Watson doesn't need to come to New Orleans. Boy, going to end up like Zion eating Buddha and Bubba seafood. Poor boy, 90 pounds overweight. That's real. Everybody know Louisiana is known for its cuisine. The South in general, but Louisiana and then especially New Orleans. But just to confirm, I'm not saying some of those pictures of Zion was inaccurate, but you could tell at some point they started doing Photoshop, just making him look extra big and all that. And I don't know if that was ever the case of him being that big, but he went to Portland to rehab, probably to get a little bit away from the media coverage around the team as well. And he's been having setbacks with his injury, and I don't know how he deals with that mentally and emotionally. Being a young man, I know he's big, and he's 6'6", 6'7", 280-some pounds to us, but they're still young, man, like very young men. And you don't know how every young man deals with adversity. He's always leaned on basketball. When you get basketball taken away from you, you just don't know how people are going to respond to that. But if you look at pictures of him over the last week, he's been returned back to New Orleans, and he's with the team, and at all home games he'll be on the sideline with the team, and he looks happy again. I don't know how much of the stories that we were hearing was true or not true about him not wanting to be in New Orleans, his family not wanting to be in New Orleans. But I believe if Zion gives it a true chance and he's healthy with McCollum and Brandon Ingram and all those pieces that they have, I think New Orleans got a chance to be a good 5 or 6 seed in the West in the future. That's just what I believe because they have some talented players. That core 3 is very talented. Zion has the potential to be a 30-point, 10-rebound guy, 7-6 assist kind of guy. He had 27-7 and 4 or 5 like last year when he played. And I know he has the potential to get better. But if you look at him now, he looks in shape. He really don't. I mean, I ain't saying he's in condition to run up and down the court right now, but his body is not like that. So just look at some recent pictures, man. And so whether he lost the weight in Portland or he was never as big as the media was portraying him to be, I'm not sure. But if you look at him now, he doesn't look overweight at all. He looks like he's in good shape. I believe the ideal weight for Zion probably ought to be like 265, something like LeBron's weight. But Zion has been playing at like 280 to 285, carrying it well. But if he's going to get longevity with the explosiveness that he has, it's a unique explosiveness that he has. I think that he probably, and then they play so many more games than you play in a college season. NBA plays 82 games. In college, he played 30-something, sometimes maybe 40. So it's like more than double the season he had in college. So to preserve his body, I think he probably needs to try to find a way to stay around in that 260-something pound range. That's just what I think. But man, DeShaun Watson, y'all got to keep in mind, it's not New Orleans can put the trade offer out there all they want. DeShaun Watson has to want to go there. But that's good and bad. The good about that is that teams that have some people say, well, what do the Saints have to offer? You know, the Saints, if they get DeShaun Watson, they picks for the future going to be high picks because they're probably going to be playoff team, possibly Super Bowl type team. So they wouldn't even pick high. This year we have an 18th pick in the draft, but we have good players on our team to go along with our draft picks. So you would say, well, what do New Orleans have that somebody like Detroit don't have that's picking like number 1? Well, number 1 or number 2. Well, what we have is the fact that DeShaun can say, I don't want to go to Detroit. DeShaun controls where he goes. So if he's not interested in going, it doesn't matter what a team can offer Houston. If he don't want to go there, he's not going to go there. So let me make it clear for you. If he says that I would want to play in New Orleans, I like what they're trying to do. I want to go be the replacement guy for Drew Brees. I want to come and create my legacy in New Orleans. I love the defense that they have. I like the organizational structure, the stability that they have in the front office. Let me come and play for New Orleans, and I'll still be in the South with the weather that I'm used to and accustomed to. I want to play in New Orleans inside a dome with controlled conditions. Then that's going to make Houston have to negotiate exclusively with the New Orleans Saints. Now, they may ask us for more than what we were trying to offer, and then we'll just have to go to the table and we go back and forth with that. But they can't send him anywhere that he does not want to go play. So that's the positive about, even though you may not be picking number 1 or number 2 in the top 10 in the draft this year, that doesn't matter totally. Because if he wants to go to your organization, then they're going to have to send him somewhere. And then they're just going to have to work out what the compensation that they feel is equivalent for what they want for him. So that's how that goes. So if he thinks that New Orleans is a worthwhile program, and it's not just New Orleans who put out trade packages for him. New Orleans, I think the Carolina Panthers. There are a lot of teams interested, but the only ones that I know have sent out offers for him officially have been New Orleans and the Carolina Panthers. And of course, we don't want to be playing against DeShaun Watson twice a year in our division. We'd rather have him on our side. But Seahawks want him. Are they interested? A lot of teams going to be interested. Who wouldn't be interested in an all-pro quarterback? I think Cleveland is interested. They have a quarterback that they could send back to Houston in return. And Baker Mayfield, he may not be living up to the number 1 pick, but he's okay. He's taking Cleveland to the playoffs, and maybe he allow Houston to buy their time until they get to a draft that's more fruitful at quarterback. Because all the media analysts have been saying, and all the scouts and from all the NFL circles, this is a kind of weak quarterback class. So a lot of teams won't put a lot of high value on quarterbacks coming out of this year's draft. So sometimes you're going to take a quarterback that may turn out to be spectacular, but just looking at this draft compared to drafts in the past when you've had the Joe Burrows and the Justin Herberts and all these guys, you don't really have that consensus number one quarterback in this year's draft. So Baker Mayfield probably would be a decent quarterback for Houston to hold on to until they can find a way to get the quarterback that they really want. But man, let me see. Just for some, if you watch it, man, and if you don't watch it live and you catch it later, I actually activated a feature on my live that you can rewind. You're able to rewind the live. So if you just jump on right now, you're actually able to go back and rewind the live. I've never done that before, never saw it, but I had an option to do that today, and I just activated it. I tried it. So let's see something. Let me turn the volume down. Okay. So also, man, let me see what I want. So if there are any Saints fans out there, you don't have to be a Saints fan to answer the question. But just be real though. If you were New Orleans, would you just say, instead of me giving up all this draft capital plus players, starting caliber players, probably almost all pro kind of players, or at least better than average players, because one of the packages that I think New Orleans was talking about was that New Orleans would offer this year's first round, next year's first round, and next year's first round, and somewhere a second or third round pick, along with Marcus Davenport, which is our defensive end that has all the potential in the world. Injuries have kept him from living up to it, but last year he had his best year in terms of sacks. He had 9, but he's a bull, man, and you can't block him. And if he can get healthy, but I believe going into next year, he's finally going to hit that double digit. It's all about him being on the field. But he's 6'5", 6'6", came out, he ran a 4.5 in the 40. He's a defensive end. He's hard to deal with, man. He just wasn't able to stay healthy in these first 3 years. But he would be probably part of the package. Some people say that the player that they would want, along with the picks, would be maybe Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, somebody like that, maybe Eric McCoy, our center. So you're going to lose somebody that you want to have, because they're not going to give up an all-pro quarterback at the age of 26 years old and don't get nothing back. It will just be up to Dennis Allen to be willing to sacrifice a little bit on the defensive side to improve greatly on the offensive side at our quarterback position, which is the most important position in all of football. So the question that I want to ask is, would you just scratch all of that and just roll back Jameis Winston and hope for good health? Hope he's able to play the entire year. Give him maybe a 2 to 3 year deal with maybe a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year team option, something around $12 million a year. Because truthfully, he got to be honest. I know he has a market for him, but there's still a lot of questions about Jameis Winston. And I don't think you have to break the bank for him, but you gotta be fair with it. I don't think you could just give him pennies on a dollar, but you don't have to break the bank for him, because he's still in a proven mode. Before New Orleans, he always had that cloud hanging over his career too about being turnover prone. So he was able to show us that he could play more consistently than that in New Orleans, but we only saw for a small sample size for 7 games. And even in those 7 games, we hadn't seen him just totally take over. We had seen him manage. Maybe he was going to get to that, but he hadn't done that yet. So what do you pay him? I don't know. So I don't think New Orleans has to overpay. I think they have a number that they're willing to pay, and I don't think that they're willing to go above that to keep him. But you're going to have to do something, because you don't want to get left out with neither of the quarterbacks, and then you have to hope for a draft pick or lower tier trade. And I don't want nobody like Mitch Trubisky. I really don't. I'm just keeping it real. I don't want Mitchell Trubisky on our team as our starting quarterback. I don't want Taysom Hill starting quarterback. I don't want Trevor Siemian. I want Taysom back in his normal jack of all trade role. That's where he seems to fit us best. But what would you do if you were the GM for the New Orleans Saints? Would you go all out and go all in for DeShaun Watson, especially if he shows interest back? Or would you just say, I'd rather keep my team together, keep my top 5 defense, not mess with that, and just add some playmakers on the offensive side that Jameis can use, because he never had Michael Thomas last year. So you would have Michael Thomas, Marquez Callaway, who was our number one last year. I don't think he's a number one, but he's definitely probably a wonderful number three receiver. And you draft your number two, somebody like Jameson Williams from Alabama, who might drop to number 18 because of his injury. But he's 6'2" and he's a burner. I mean, he's got track speed. Put him opposite Mike Thomas, Callaway at the 3, and Deontay Harris coming in when you run a 4 wide receiver set, or when you just want to do the little sweeps and the wide receiver quick screens, somebody that's catch the ball in space and make something happen. Then he's at 4. Now your wide receiver room is awesome. Mike Thomas, whoever the number 2 that you draft this year, Jameson Williams, the guy from Ohio State, to either one of the wide receivers from Ohio State ran the 4.21 and the 4.26 in the 40. With Callaway, Marquez Callaway at the number 3, and Deontay Harris at the 4. I think now you got a wonderful, wonderful wide receiver group. And then you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do about Alvin Kamara's situation, because you can't go 6 games. I'm saying 6 games minimum, but I don't know how many games he'll probably be suspended for. But he's your best offensive player. Even with Mike Thomas, I believe he's your best overall offensive player, and you're going to probably be without him for a good portion of the early part of the season, and you're going to have to find some way to replace that production. So, to me, I'm being honest with you. I know how hard it is to get quarterbacks that are all pro caliber, because we know how hard it was before we got Drew Brees, and Drew Brees brought a consistency to our team, along with Sean Payton, that we hadn't seen before in New Orleans, like on that level. And we had always known we had a chance when we had those guys suiting up in the black and gold. And so to get that, we had that for 15 seasons. And before that, it was up and down with our quarterback play. And I'm telling you now, I go all in for DeShaun Watson if he has interest to come to New Orleans. And I'll just build up my defense, maybe lose a key piece or two, but I'll rather compensate that on the offensive side, because our offensive side was very inconsistent and very boring to watch sometimes, and hard to watch, but our defense is also. I'll give up a little bit on defense to improve greatly on offense with an all-pro 26-year-old quarterback that we can sign for upward of 10 years or so. That's what I would do. And if you don't, but just make a decision quickly. So you need answers soon, and you need to try to have a timeline that you only can wait for. You know, you can't have DeShaun drag it out forever, even though he said he's not in a rush. You can't have it dragged out forever, because if you do, you have the potential to lose out on even Jameis Winston. And then now you're starting to scramble. And I don't know what you're going to do if you don't get Jameis. So I don't want to play with it too long. I want to make a decision. We're throwing an offer out there. I hope that we can have a time frame that we're willing to wait for a response. And if we don't get that response that we're looking for, we're going to have to move on from the DeShaun Watson thing. But if DeShaun Watson shows any interest, then we have to go all in and do whatever we got to do to get it. That's how I feel. And I'm going to be honest, as a Saints fan, die hard. Not no 2009 Saints fan on up. But since I was a child, real talk, if you know me for real, you know that. That's all I want. I'm a hometown guy, kind of guy. Those are my team. Ignorant Warrior, LSU Southern, New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans. That's a fact. I have a hard time being passionate about teams that I have no attachment or connection to. Now, some people might say, well, my dad was a Cowboy fan and I just grew up in a house where we all rooted for the Cowboys. Okay, that's your connection here. But in my household, we didn't really have no solid team, but we watched New Orleans on every time they wasn't blacked out. So New Orleans is just my team. And when I used to love the Bulls, that's with Michael Jordan. So I realized that maybe I wasn't a real Bulls fan. I might have been a Chicago Bulls fan because they had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Because when they left, I wasn't that attached to the Bulls. And once New Orleans got the Charlotte Hornets to relocate to New Orleans, I became a New Orleans Hornets fan, which they changed their name now to the New Orleans Pelicans. And I've been a fan so ever since when that was around about 06 or something. They've been in New Orleans over 15 years. That's how long I've been a New Orleans Hornets / Pelicans fan. You know, so I'm that kind of guy, and that's real. But as a Saints fan from the beginning, back in the 90s with Dome Patrol and tight ends like Hobie Brenner and Brent Tice and, you know, John Fourcade as a journeyman quarterback type, you know, along Gil Finnerty. You got to know these names. If you're a Saints fan, you know some of these names. You know, Brett Maxey, you know, Gene Atkins, Toy Cook, I'm just throwing out some names, man. I've been doing this for a long time. Vaughn Johnson, you know what I'm saying? You got Pig Golf, you know, you got Leroy Glover, you know, you got what's his name? Number 9, Ronaldo Turnbull. All these names, I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Ironhead, Craig Hayward on offense, Ruben Mays, you know what I'm saying? Dalton Hilliard, Eric Martin. I've been with the Saints that long. To Aaron Brooks, to Jeff Blake, to Willie Jackson, that wide receiver, that long. So as a Saints fan, and I'm different from what my grandfather would have said about a Saints fan, because he grew up in an era when the Saints was cheap and they didn't want to pay nobody. And people that don't really care about the Saints like I do, they stick with that mind frame and that stigma that was attached to that early front office time frame when they had their general manager was, I think his name was Jim Finks. They was considered cheap. But if you know now, Saints be over the salary cap for the last few years. I think last year we were the number one. Well, we had the highest cap. You know, we had to get off of $100 million to get in cap compliance. So for people that always say the Saints don't pay nobody, y'all don't know nothing about our team. Y'all don't know anything about the salary cap. You're going off some old stigma that was attached to New Orleans back in the 1980s and maybe early 90s, but you're very, very much wrong now. New Orleans pays for the players that they consider to be premium players or impact players. They pay them. That's a fact. Anybody that they consider to be somebody that they can't do without, they pay them. Now, sometimes just because of the nature of football, you can't keep everybody. That's great. Some players on your team, all of them are exceeding expectations. You're not going to be able to keep all of them. You have to make decisions on what's most important to you, and maybe you can compensate for the lost player in some other form through free agency or the draft. You can't keep everybody you want to have on your team. Every team goes through it, but because we're in Louisiana, everybody like to talk negative and down on New Orleans because they watch us. So everybody who hate on New Orleans, what's wild about it is that they watch us every Sunday. They know my team better than they know their own team. They up and down the roster. They know everybody on our team. They talk about all kind of transactions, but they don't like New Orleans, but they watch us every week. Go to the games and all. So I don't know if they really don't like New Orleans or they're just scared to root for them just because they feel like New Orleans has always let them down. I believe that they really like New Orleans on the slick, but they don't want to get caught up in New Orleans letting them down because we do have some very, very painstaking, heartbreaking defeats in weird times in the playoff that it looked like nobody else could do that but us. So I feel you, but I'm a diehard. I roll with them when the rough times and I roll with them when it's up time. You know what I'm saying? So you can't just be up and down. Roll with your team. Stay steady, man. I'm a real fan. That's facts. I'm proud of the team that New Orleans is now in the fact that they don't play and they are proactive all the way around the board. Free agents that they say we can't afford, if we want them, we go get them. You know, draft pieces that they say we can't get it. New Orleans is willing to move up in the draft and sacrifice future picks to get somebody that they think is worthwhile. And their scouting department has proven to be efficient, even more consistent since they've gotten Jeff Ireland for over the last probably 6 to 7 years. To go with Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton at the helm. New Orleans has been known at scouting good talent that may be overlooked by the masses. 3rd to 5th round talent they're able to develop into Pro Bowl caliber players. Teron Armstead, back in the day, Jari Evans, Carl Nix. These are offensive linemen. They was picked in 3rd rounds or lower. I'm telling you, they was all pros. They're wide receivers. We got undrafted people that was never heard of, Lance Moores, and then you got running back, free agent, Pierre Thomas's. And y'all know New Orleans Saints history. These guys contributed to New Orleans' success greatly. New Orleans is good at developing talent. They're good at scouting. You're not going to hit on all of them, but overall, I think they have a good record and reputation for being able to evaluate talent. And it don't always have to be the talent that everybody knows. It's sometimes talent that it has been undiscovered, so to speak, diamonds in the rough. So with that, I enjoy having an aggressive approach to team building that New Orleans has. New Orleans is not going to sit on its laurels because James is in the house. He's not technically under contract, but he's in the house. You have a built-in advantage right now with negotiating with James. Not saying he's going to automatically come to New Orleans, not saying he's going to give us a discount, but you have an advantage because he's been with us for 2 years. He does like the organization. He does love the players. He does realize he has Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas on offense and that we're only going to get better. And he's comfortable with the stability in the front office and all of that. So you do have that advantage. But New Orleans is saying, although we want to be an option for Jameis, and of course he's an option for us, we will be doing ourselves a disservice if we did not go after some of these quarterbacks that may be some notches above him. And Jameis's potential is just as high as those are. It's just that he has not shown it like they have. So Russell Wilson's and the Aaron Rodgers and the DeShaun Watson New Orleans is saying we're not going to not play. We're gonna get in the game. You know what I'm saying? Now, they might not accept our offer, but we're going to get in the game. And I appreciate us having that approach, man, because it lets me know that we're not comfortable sitting pat, just sitting there and accepting what happens. We want to be an aggressive franchise that goes after players and goes after what we're looking for, and we don't sit still in the draft. Everybody know we always moving around in the draft. So just that's the way we are, and I appreciate having that approach. But man, like I say, I don't know where DeShaun Watson's going to ultimately go. I would love for him to end up being in New Orleans because it's going to bring some energy to New Orleans. But just as much as it'll bring energy and enthusiasm for the on-field play, especially for the offense, there is another element to that could be a little bit negative toward the franchise when dealing with someone who's been accused of what he's been accused of in the general eye of the public and what people in these groups, these movements, these organizations that are pro-women and anti-abuse and all these types of things, Me Too movements. You got to wonder, will they be standing outside of Parker Street from the Superdome with their signs? And I'm certain they would. So it's something to think about and as a franchise, but it's also something that I know New Orleans has already thought about. And I think they're willing to accept that because they're figuring that they're offset. They assume that they will be able to offset their unhappiness by some fans that may decide to walk away from the black and gold by winning on the field and possibly having an opportunity to win a Super Bowl and gaining new fans by having DeShaun Watson and giving him another chance. Everyone in life deserves second chances, and most of us get more than two. In the NFL, as long as your production is greater than your off the field issues, you're going to still be sought after. Antonio Brown, i.e. But as soon as they start to level off or off the field becomes greater than on field, you're out of here. That's just how it goes. But DeShaun Watson's on field right now in the eyes of the circles of the NFL, and I'm not saying that this is fair, and I'm not saying this is a global thing or what the world thinks about it, but in the sports world, his production is still higher than his off-field issues. And we don't know how many of these issues are totally accurate and true, or how many of them have been embellished and all of that. But if he did one of them, I'm not saying it's right at all. I'm just saying if there's no criminal activity involved and it's all civil, then we have to be mindful and let the judicial system do what he do. But if he's found to be exonerated from all of that, I think he just deserves a change. Michael Vick had to go through something like this, different, but something similar when he had to try to reestablish his reputation after fighting dogs quite a while ago, and he had to sit 2 years in jail, and then he came back to Philadelphia, and he was a model player, improved his passing, and was up for conversation in MVP talks about a year or two after he came out of prison for fighting dogs. So I don't know if DeShaun's stuff is as egregious, that egregious, more egregious. I don't know. I don't know what's true, what's not true, what's been embellished, what's not been embellished. Was it all employed by Houston because he chose not to want to re-sign, or he didn't want to be there anymore? He had already signed a year before, but he didn't want to play for them anymore. And so did they always know this information and they withheld it? And as soon as he decided he wasn't going to play for them, then they want to start spewing it out and reaching out to people that would testify against him? I don't know. A lot of people in the barbershop circle feel that there's a Houston Texans doing their thing because they was pissed off at it. Real talk, mad at it. And now things are starting to kind of quiet down a bit. You know what I'm saying? On that front, it was weird. The timing of it was very weird because you didn't hear about none of it until he said he didn't want to play there anymore. So I don't know, man. It's just good stuff to think about. But again, if I had to pick, I'm going all in for DeShaun Watson. And if we can't get DeShaun Watson, I'm hopeful that Jameis Winston is there as a fallback option. And I know fallback option does not sound good, but it just is what it is. You're not the first option. That means you're a fallback option. You're not my first choice, but I would like you if I can't get who I'm looking for. That's just what that is, you know. This is what it is. Let me turn this down. Let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about. So, this DeShaun Watson's on-field performance, does it, when you weigh his on-field performance as opposed to his off-field issues that he's been going through this last year, when you weigh them, how do you value them? And with the off-field issues, do you think his on-field performance is enough for you to say, I'm going to roll with him anyway, and I'll just deal with those off-field issues, and as we start winning games, people will forget about it? Or do you say, I don't want all the distractions that come along with him, all of the off-the-field issues that are going to come along with signing him or offering a trade package for him, plus I'm depleting my team of future first-round picks when I get him? Is he worth that with all the stuff that's going to come when you sign him? The backlash from the media and from the local community and those groups and organizations that are against that. There's something for you to weigh. I just know, for one, the NFL has always tolerated great players. And I'm not saying if it's right. I'm just telling you what's always happened. Ben Roethlisberger, y'all go back, y'all can go look it up early on in his career. Y'all know what he was charged with. We know how it ended. He ended up playing about 16, 17 more seasons. Brett Favre, he had some in his locker room against a female reporter reporting in the locker room. Y'all go look it up. Y'all want to. He played. He was able to retire. You know, it's been going on a long time. Off field, when you're when your on field performance, just imagine when I'm doing my hands as a seesaw. This hand represents your on field performance. This hand represents your off field issues. When your on field performance is greater than your off field issues, so imagine it's a seesaw, you're in the winning mode. You're in the winning position. You're up top. You're on top. Teams are going to continue on accepting and trying to tolerate and hoping that they can change your behavior. Antonio Brown, 3-4 teams, and he's still struggling. I don't know if it's all his fault. I just know something's got to be wrong. Whatever you call it, four organizations later, he's not currently on anybody's team, and he's still good enough football player talent-wise. But guess what? It was a time they accepted it all because his on-field performance was so much greater than his off-field performance. And I'm not saying that it's still equal now. I think his on-field performance is still great, but he's still had so many off-field that off-field is starting to get equal to his on-field, and it may even have become greater than his on-field. And if it has, that's when you find yourself out of the league. Right now, DeShaun Watson has never had anything against him negatively. They're going to shake it off no matter how it goes. As long as he's not criminally charged, it's going to be shaken off. And you see all the interest from all these other NFL teams once his legal charges were dropped. The civil stuff that still got to go on, he'll deal with that outside of court. Most likely, it's going to involve some money. That's just what it is. But as long as it's on the field, it's greater than it's off the field. NFL, NBA, all sports leagues, they're going to tolerate that. Even in Hollywood, record companies, they're going to tolerate your bad behavior or your misjudgment because your performance is netting them positive results, greater return, i.e. money. When you begin to decrease and you're not bringing money, or your money that you're bringing is not greater than the money that you're causing the team to lose, you're out of the league. And right now, I think DeShaun Watson is still in the up position. I don't know the intricacies of the situation, don't know the truth all the way, only know what's been reported. Not saying it was all good stuff that was reported, but I just think that a portion of it was sabotage. Just to sabotage his career, and it may have been at the hands of his own organization. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. But man, I'm not going to hold y'all much longer. I just want to talk to y'all today. kind of get y'all feel, man. Try to get back in the mode of doing the sports show segments. I do like them. Sometimes I'm gonna have some guys on, guys that know how to talk their sports, that know what they're talking about at the barbershop. Bring them on and let them enjoy the show with me. I just wanted to kind of holler at y'all for a minute, man. It was great. I see y'all tomorrow, though. No, not tomorrow, on Tuesday with our Kingdom Discussion episode. And until then, man, holler at your boy, man. Remember, it's not about being liked. It's not even about how people feel. As long as you make sure that whatever you say, you bring passion, you show respect, and most importantly, keep it real. That's real talk. SportsEd in the building. Holler at your boy.